G'day folks, I'm Mike and welcome to the FifeLife, Australian Canary Hobby. This channel is a journal and it's taking you through, the hobby, keeping canaries here in Australia, hopefully generating some interest in the hobby. And it really is just a day in the life, a week, the routines I do and the things that I do to keep my birds happy and healthy. Before we get started with the topic of today's journal, I want to say a couple of big thank yous and shout outs. First of all, Kieran Dowling, thank you for your lovely voice message made all the way from Ireland. Just about brought a tear to my eye, mate, that there's people in the hobby like yourself there, passionate and appreciative of the little episodes I put together so far. Mate, it really tickled my fancy and I really appreciate that. So thanks again, mate. And as you said, the FifeLife, great minds think alike, buddy. Also want to say a big shout out to one of our home-based heroes. I had a lovely phone call and stayed on the phone for over an hour yesterday with Alfio. He's in Victoria and the Victoria Club, the Gloucester Club down there. And we just, sat there and had a lovely chat about birds, the direction of the hobby, things that we see and we've observed, and potentially things that we can do, like with our social media here, to make things a little bit more progressive and just help generate some interest. So Alfio, it was awesome to talk to you, buddy. I've got all my stuff ready to become a member of the Gloucester Club of Victoria. And if you're in Victoria and you're looking to network, check those guys out. There's also the Gloucesters of Australia. There's a Facebook page there. It looks like everyone had a great time at the show yesterday. Some lovely birds up on the bench, so well done, guys. And I'll be sure to share some of that on our Facebook page. While I mention that, do check out our Facebook page, the FifeLife. Putting up a couple of posts each week just to keep it active and keep people, interested. And I encourage you guys, like, comment, share. All of those things help spread not only the love, but spread the hobby and the passion into other groups or pages. We just want to see this hobby stay alive, and that's my passion. So yeah, be active and be a part of it. And those that are, I really appreciate you guys. Now, today's topic that I'm going to talk about, and I hope people can see that there's going to be a little bit of a theme and a little bit of a progressive narrative with the channel. And we've spoken about, the hobby itself, and I did an intro. I've spoken about the shed and my setup, cages. We've spoken about water and the importance of fresh daily water and some of the things that I put in the water just to get the most out of the birds and get them as happy and healthy as possible. We spoke about seed in the last journal episode, and today we're going to talk about the fresh food component, your fresh leafy greens, and all the goodness that's packed into those, and just how important they are. Because yes, we can just feed birds seed and they will survive, but let's make our birds truly thrive. And this is a big part of our daily and weekly routines, so I'm going to talk about that in a little bit of detail, talk about where I source really good quality produce, and also the little gold nuggets, the little things that people might go, geez, I didn't think of that variety of leafy green. I've always just gone for the staples, and that's fine. Remembering what's available to you is what's available to you. But I'm very blessed to be in this part of the tropics where we've got some awesome stuff. So yeah, I want to shoot the talk on greens and leafy greens and fresh food, and what I do is that part of my birds' nutrition and their dietary needs. So let's get started with that. Alright folks, as you can see now I'm in the shed and I've gone about my daily duties. Seeds are topped up, drinkers are done, given the place a little tickle for you so that it's nice and clean. But I'm going to talk about the fresh food component of my birds' diet and their weekly feeding regime. And I've always had a pretty strict sort of schedule on how I do things. Something that I love about the hobby. But I do things a certain way, and I always judge it, as I say, if the birds look good, then it must be good. But when it comes to feeding the fresh food, just know that I am absolutely blessed here in Townsville. We are at the doorstep of the Daintree rainforest, up at the tablelands around areas like Atherton, Herberton. That's where a lot of the fresh produce is grown for the whole east coast of Australia. And the quality of stuff up there is exceptional. Now, I will post a little video of my local fresh food market. I personally steer clear of the large supermarkets. Just find the quality isn't as good, that the shelf life isn't as good on the produce. So that's one thing to consider is, what's available to you is what's available to you. But here in Townsville, we have some very good local produce places, and I go to Lambert's, and you'll see the quality, and there's some real sense of pride, and the staff members that put it on the shelf, and the place looks immaculate, and I just love it. So there is some things and the staples of the hobby that everyone will be familiar with, but also there are other things that I give the birds, and things that I found are real superfoods, and it's just been based on doing a little bit of research, and through that research and just observing the birds again, making sure that what I give them is making them look their best. Today when I went through and did a clean-up, barely a feather in the cage. So we've raced through the molt this year. I've got the birds ready as quickly and in best condition as early in the year as I possibly can. And fingers crossed that translates to later in the breeding season that the birds are just firing. Now with the fresh food, obviously, there's staples of the hobby. There's things that we all know and love. Broccoli. My favourite of the hobby here is spinach. And it's really good stuff. I do use these, but I will use them if there's stuff that I like a little bit better, or the birds like a little bit better. If I can't get the stuff that I really like, then I'll get this stuff as a backup. I do put broccoli in my soft food mix, my egg food mix. But one of the things I want to point out with broccoli, first of all, is when you give it to the birds, they sort of just pick and graze at the top of the floret. And then there's all this goodness underneath, the nutrition in the stalk, and so forth, that can go to waste. So I'll often, cut the bases off the stalks and what have you, and I'll blend that up and put that through the food processor as well with my soft food mix. But a way of, I guess, avoiding that wastage is this little gem here. This is it's a leafy green. It's an Asian leafy green, and it's called kailan. Now, kailan is Chinese broccoli, and it is packed, and I mean packed with nutrients. It's a bit of a superfood, and my birds really like it. It's got a little bit of a waxy texture. It's quite a thick leaf, but the birds love it. They go nuts for it. It's probably not going to be available mainstream in your supermarkets, but if you have an Asian grocer, or like me, a fresh food produce place like Lambert's, if you can get your hands on this stuff, it is so good for your birds. And where we have a bit of wastage with normal broccoli, the leafy Chinese broccoli, no wastage. The birds will literally chew it down to the stalk. They go mental for it. So that's what I'm going to be giving them in a minute. And you can see some of them getting a little bit excited, which that's a favourite part of my day, is seeing the birds get a little bit lively, and they're anticipating it, a treat, a little snacky. So yeah, kailan, that's the first little gold nugget. Very, very good for the birds. Awesome. Now the other one, I've mentioned it in episodes before, and that's choy sum. Choy sum is another one of the Asian leafy greens, packed full of nutrients, full of goodness. It just tends to have a little bit better shelf life. So I can buy this, and I usually give it a good rinse, and I put it into a container, pop it down in the crisper. It'll last a couple of days. Whereas, when I talk about spinach, and your leafy greens, your spinach, and what have you, I tend to find it gets wilts very quickly. It's still very good. I think what you've got to be careful of too is where it's grown. Now, as I said, this stuff's all from the tablelands. Now, up there, the garden gnomes are 6 foot tall, guys. It's a place that is just so rich in the soil quality and the sunlight and everything. I mean, if you don't mow your lawn up there for a week, you need a chainsaw. So I'm very lucky to have that at my doorstep. But if you're going mainstream, just have a little bit of a think about, is it being grown hydroponically? Is it being grown artificial light or whatever? And that's where sometimes your local markets and your fresh food places, they can do a little bit better job with supplying you and supplying your birds with a product that has more natural nutrients and ingredients. It's just something to consider. I know the flip side of that is people will say, yeah, but Mike, you use supplements in your water and what have you. I do, and I just think it's a nice way to balance it out. So I balance it out by using the fresh food product that I know is grown, farmer grown, supplied directly to the market, probably a greater reduction of pesticides and herbicides and things like that. I do take that into consideration a bit, okay? So anyway, little gold nugget, kailan, Choy-sum is a really good one. I do feed kale occasionally, but I do want to say this about kale. I don't know if it's, me personally, I don't really like the flavour of kale. If I went out for dinner and someone served me a plate of kale, I'd be like, no thanks. It does have a bit of a bitterness about it. I know it's a superfood, but I think these do just as good a job, right? And the birds seem to really love it, okay? So I'm just going to go around and I want to get the birds in it. They're excited. I don't want to hold out on them too long. So I'm just going to go around, and while I do that, I'm just going to have a little bit of a recap, and I just want to say to people, thank you for embracing the ideas that I had last week. I put forward some ideas and some things about the hobby, and there's always a little bit of trepidation. I've spoken about it before. There's a little bit of anxiety that when you put stuff out there on social media that someone might come and have a bit of a dig at you. And I'm cool with that because this is just a hobby, whatever. If it's my dog training page, I'll probably take it a little bit more personally. But I don't say anything on here that I want to offend anyone with. It's just ideas. I just want to see the hobby just flourish. And I guess I'm kind of looking at it like I don't want to sound like a Donald Trumpy, but make Canaries cool again. I feel like that's something that we could really tap into in our mindset, is make Canaries cool again. Make it be a little bit of a fun atmosphere around the hobby, you know. There are some people in our hobby that, you know, are a little bit crusty, I guess, and we just need to keep those guys in check and not let them sort of, you know, bring others down. Remember, I said it in the very first episode, it was that quote that I loved: the rising tide lifts all the ships. That's a cool thing when you think about our hobby, and that's why it was so lovely to chat to Alfio, messaging Kieran. Like, they're young blokes. They're sort of around. Well, Kieran, you look a lot younger than I do. But when I spoke to Alfio, you know, he's in his early 40s, or he's just turned 40, and there is a bit of a need to inject a little bit of that into the hobby. You know, I said it last time. I don't think young kids is really our target market. I don't think going to schools is where we need to be. But I think, you know, getting they've got, you know, Alfio's keen as, mate. He's keen. He loves his birds. It's like me. He loves the hobby. And so, with that said, when I was talking to him and we were bouncing ideas back and forth, a big thing was me just trying to say to him, you know, get the social media side of things pumping. And he's sent me a whole heap of stuff I'm going to put on our Facebook page this week. Some lovely photos of birds that did well in the show, and his birds are doing well. As a novice, he's doing very well. So congratulations, man. That's awesome. All right, look at my little piggies. As I said, they love this stuff. I didn't really know much about it until I was talking to a lady that was filling the shelves, and I said, "Oh, Kailan." I said, "What's that? I've never heard of it." And she said, "Have you heard of Chinese broccoli?" And I said, "Well, actually, I have. I've had it in soups, and I've had it in Asian dishes when I've been eating out." And she said, "That's what it is. It's Asian." I said, "Oh, wow." And being a leafy green, you can see that the birds, they eat the whole lot. So they get a whole belly full of goodness. And that's awesome. Here you go down the end. There, my little girls. There you go. Oh, look at them. You can't see this, but they're just about jumping on the leaf while I'm putting it in. That's something I've noticed too. I had a few people message me during the week. I had two guys ask me, they said, "Mate, you know, why don't you have the borders?" And I explained it on the Facebook page. I've said it before. And I almost feel like it, you know, some people can get like it was a bit offended, like, "Oh, you ditch borders for Fifes." Look, not at all. At the end of the day, you can do whatever you like. That's what I said. You can keep budgies for all I care. One of the things I'll say about the Fifes is they seem to have a real steadiness about them, guys, that is a little bit different to other birds, the other canary types I've had in the shed. They're a little bit more inquisitive than some of the birds I've had. And part of that might be that, you know, the gentleman that raised these birds, Peter, is in and out of his shed a lot, attention to detail with his birds, you know, and they come from show birds, which have that steadiness on the bench and all the qualities that we look for in our Fifes and in our show birds. But look, they're very steady birds, and they're very inquisitive, the little Fifes, and I've just fallen in love with them. I'm absolutely smitten. I've got a little stalker down the end I spoke about on Facebook, little Esme I've called her. She's just a little sticky bee. reminds me of just like a little gossip in the shed. She's always watching what I'm doing. If I'm in here, she sort of follows me around a bit. No doubt, I think it's a bit of conditioning for the fact that when I come in here, it's to give them stuff like these leafy greens. But yeah, again, I'm just really impressed with the Fifes. I think if you're going to be a beginner, there is a need to choose beginner type birds. And I've made life a bit hard for myself along the way. You know, I've had birds that were a little bit hard to breed. So I'm just feeling really positive about this change, guys. So it's not that I sucked at the borders. It's not that we had epic failures. The partnership that Dad and I had when we were breeding, sharing birds between us, and we got beautiful birds off Steve down in Wollongong. It's just we've just gone a little bit of a different direction in the shed this year because I just want to have a bit more of a crack at the productivity and get the numbers up so I can build the hobby. So yeah, so that's where we're at. So look, again, you can't talk for an hour about leafy greens and what have you, but if I was to say, you know, what are my top 5? My number 1, Kailan. My number 2, Choy Sum. Number 3, spinach. Then you've got your pak choy and your bok choy, probably come in, you know, equal in that. You're heading into that list as well. Kale, again, good for the birds, but I've just found some of my birds don't really like it, and yeah, so that's something to consider. Now, when I do prepare my leafy greens, and I spoke about this part of the broccoli that can be wastage, I want to show you what I do, because the regime that I feed the birds is that I do leafy greens Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday I do baths, and I don't do any leafy greens, right? Because they make a bit of a mess when I put the baths in and what have you. Thursday, Friday, I'll do leafy greens again. And then I'll also do on Saturday, I do the mix, and I'm going to show you a photo of the mix that I do, because I do a little bit of a power feed mix, and that's all of the stalks and the stems and the offcuts and the trimmings. And what I do with that is I pop it in the food processor with some carrot, okay, and a little bit of apple or some kiwi fruit, and I give that to the birds with a little sprinkle of the Soluvite D, the multivitamin, which I've spoken to before. And that's a little bit of a power up for the birds. Come Sunday, baths again, and usually after the morning baths, that's when I go through on a Sunday and I do a bit of a clean out of the shed and give it a really good tidy up. So that's my regime, and I stick to that. You know, like I spoke about waters, I've got certain things that I do with the waters on certain days, and I think it's important to have that routine. It's part of the hobby that I love. It holds me accountable, and yeah, so, you know, Monday, Tuesday greens, Wednesday baths, Thursday, Friday greens again, and then Saturday, you know, it's really the power mix, and then Sunday baths and a good clean out of the shed, and it just has the birds running like clockwork. And I think the birds are looking really healthy for this time of year. I haven't had this vigour and vibrance in the shed in these hotter months when the birds are molting. I haven't had that before. So it's exciting. It means that we're hopefully on track, and it's a good start to the year. And I think if you have a good start to the year and you have a good start to the many months that come up to the breeding season, you know, hopefully the wheels don't fall off the wagon, but I think we're in good stead. All right, guys, so that's it. That's enough talking about leafy greens. You know, I've done everything I need to do here. It's a work day, so I'm going to get about my other stuff, and cool. I have. Will they let me? Riley and the guys in the poultry section of bought birds. And so, folks, that's it for another episode. Journal number 5, I'm still alive. Big thank you to everyone once again for all of your lovely messages, your Facebook comments, all of the interaction that this is bringing about by me starting up this channel and having the Facebook page. I really appreciate you guys. To me, it's just my passion, it's my hobby, and you know, I adore these little birds. They're awesome, and I hope that you guys are getting something out of this as well. If you did enjoy this episode and journal, don't forget to hit the like button, share, and subscribe. that's how we keep everything moving and get it out amongst the community and get people interested in what we love to do, okay? All right, guys, and remember, a happy Fife, happy life.